You know Tactics Ogre, FF Tactics. We're going beyond that into tactical RPGs from that era that most people walked right past, whatever the reason may have been. Some of these are genuinely great. A couple of them are fascinating disasters, but all of them deserve more attention than they've gotten. And look, if any of these ring a bell, you're exactly who this video is for. Let's get to it. Master of Monsters, Disciples of Gaia has the best concept to execution ratio problem on this list. And I say that as someone who wants to love it. The premise is genuinely great. 6 disciples aligned to different moral alignments, each with access to completely different monster rosters. Your alignment determines what you can summon, and monsters combine in shrines to potentially produce something amazing or collapse into a puddle of slime, depending on compatibility. You're capturing towers on a hex grid to fuel your summoning power while managing your master commander and evolving your creature army. On paper, this sounds addictive. The problem is execution. The visuals look like an early PS1 game, released 2 years late. Bug reports from the time describe controls that stop registering input without warning and loading hitches between animations. The combat is genuinely repetitive. Hex movement and one-on-one engagements with minimal variation between enemy types. The master unit becomes so powerful relative to summoned creatures by mid-game that the whole monster army concept loses its reason to exist. The story is essentially non-existent. What survives all of that is the faction v faction concept and the monster combination system, which do scratch the itch when they're working. This one genuinely needed another development cycle, but never got one. Nectaris Military Madness is a 1998 PS1 remake of a 1989 TurboGrafx-16 game, meaning this is the grandfather of hex-based tactical strategy getting a 32-bit update, while most people were playing FF Tactics. The original was foundational. It directly influenced Dune 2, which helped define the real-time strategy genre. It was doing hex grid, formation bonus, resource factory strategy, before most of that design vocabulary existed on consoles. The PS1 version comes loaded. Over 100 maps, combining the original campaign with a Neo-Nectaris sequel campaign, plus a map editor for building your own battlefields. The encirclement bonus system, where surrounding an enemy unit has their stats regardless of unit type, and it rewards careful positioning and multi-unit coordination in ways that still feel surprisingly deep. You can destroy a high-level tank with basic infantry if you engineer the right geometric situation. That's not typical of tactics games even now. The 3D battle animations are a nice addition too. What isn't is modern or flashy. The visuals are gray and functional. The story is a 2-paragraph synopsis about Moon Wars in 2089. There's no class system, no permadeath, no character customization beyond factory selection. If you've come up on Advance Wars or Fire Emblem, this will feel stripped bare. But as a pure strategy exercise, it's remarkably tight. Most PS1 owners had no idea this even existed, and that's a shame. Langrisser 1 and 2 is a Japan-only PS1 package from 1997 that compiled 2 of the most important tactical RPGs ever made for a platform almost nobody was importing for strategy games. The first Langrisser predates Fire Emblem on the Sega Genesis by a year. The second, released in 1994, expanded the formula dramatically with branching story routes and a significantly more developed cast. Both games have a defining mechanic that most Western players have simply never encountered: the commander and mercenary system. Each hero on your team is a commander who recruits generic mercenary units for each battle. Those mercenaries function within a range of their commander, gaining attack and defense bonuses when close and losing effectiveness when spread out. Commanders earn experience from mercenary kills. Kill the enemy commander, and their entire mercenary squad collapses with them. This creates battles with 30 or more units on screen, where the strategic focus is protecting commanders and hunting the right targets. The PS1 version is Japan only and requires either import knowledge or a translation patch. which is a real access barrier. The first game's story is thin, even by 16-bit standards. But the scale of these battles and the commander-mercenary dynamic influenced almost every large-scale tactical RPG that followed. A full remaster hit Western platforms in 2020 and is genuinely excellent. But this PS1 collection is where that lineage lived in the 90s. Eternal Eyes is a 1999 Sunsoft Tactics game that Pokémon made possible and then immediately outclassed. The hook is that you control a boy who can animate magical puppet dolls called Mappets using jewels. Throw a jewel at a doll, and it becomes a creature that fights for you. They can be evolved at certain level thresholds and stat boosted through different jewel combinations. It's a proper monster collection tactical system wrapped in an SRPG grid, with dungeon exploration between fights where you can roam towns and buildings in traditional RPG fashion. The problem is almost everything around it. The translation is bad in a memorable way. Spelling errors. The same faction called 5 different names across one script. Dialogue that communicates the wrong emotion at key beats. Combat difficulty barely exists. Battles can be solved by walking forward and pressing fight. Level design has no obstacles, environmental hazards, or meaningful elevation. Enemy types repeat from start to finish with minor stat changes. There's essentially no positioning strategy required at any point. And yet the Mappet system is charming enough to keep pulling you back. Some creature designs are genuinely endearing. The puppet aesthetic has that specific late 90s anime appeal, and tinkering with jewel combinations to see what evolves is compulsively satisfying in short bursts. If they had given this another development cycle, it could have been something great. Okay, so Cardia the Word of Fate has one of the most immediately striking visual identities of any PS1 RPG, and it comes down to one name, Yoshitaka Amano. The Final Fantasy character designer did the art, and it shows in every character. Under that is a tactical RPG with a genuinely interesting twist. Magic in this world runs through cards called Cardia, and before each battle you're crafting phantom units and weapons using those cards. The Phantom system means your army composition is literally built from the resources you've been managing, not just XP. It's a preparation before battle loop that most SRPGs didn't attempt. The game also gives you 2 complete story campaigns, one following a knight named Taxa and one following a vigilante named Lacrima, and their plot lines intertwine. You get the full picture only by playing both. Neither campaign runs longer than about 20 hours, which is honestly refreshing for the genre. The localization is messy, which is the main thing that keeps this from landing harder. Awkward phrasing blunts emotional scenes that should hit, and a few story beats get genuinely confusing because the translation can't carry them. The battle designs are occasionally a bit light too. You're rarely facing more than a couple of enemy groups at once, which limits the tactical ceiling. But the art, the card crafting system, and the dual narrative structure make this one worth. Sayuki Journey West is Koei adapting Journey to the into a tactical RPG and doing it better than you'd probably expect from that description. You play as a monk traveling to India to retrieve Buddhist scriptures, escorted by a roster of divine guardians. Each guardian can transform into a more powerful beast form, tied to an elemental affinity system that actually affects how you approach combat. The fights are isometric FFT style. The presentation is gorgeous for the era, and the cast has real chemistry. What separates this from the competition isn't the systems, it's the source material. Journey to the West is one of the most beloved stories in East Asian literature, and the game respects it while having fun with it. The character interactions are funny and warm, and the individual story episodes scattered throughout the journey are often better written than the main plot thread. There are real caveats here, though. The game launched in Japan in 1999 and didn't reach North America until 2001, by which point the PS1 was basically finished, and basically no one saw it. It also doesn't push the tactical depth very hard. The challenge stays relatively low throughout, and build variety is limited by the small roster. But if you want a tactical RPG with an incredible aesthetic and source material you've probably never seen adapted as a game before, this is it. Brigandine, The Legend of Forcina, is what you get if you take the nation management layer of Ogre Battle, bolt it to a proper unit evolution system, add 6 fully playable factions. You basically pick one of 6 kingdoms and try to conquer the other 5 by deploying commanders who bring squads of summoned monsters into battle with them. Those monsters level up, evolve Pokemon style from ghouls into vampires and rocks into phoenixes, and the entire system of rune energy that sustains them means managing your economy is just as critical as winning fights. The replayability here is genuinely absurd. Each of the 6 factions opens a different perspective on the same conflict, and story events only trigger when the right characters end up in the same place at the same time. You might play 2 full campaigns and never see the same event twice. There's also a secret 7th faction that requires a specific button combination to unlock, which is very much in the spirit of a game that launched in 1998 and expected you to figure things out. The story is thin by design. There's no sweeping narrative, just faction-specific flavor and a war you shape through your own decisions. That will frustrate players who want their tactics games to tell a story. The localization is rough, and the graphical presentation is bare bones. What it delivers instead is a strategy loop that's genuinely hard to put down once it gets its hooks in you. Vanguard Bandits is a tactical RPG about medieval knights who pilot giant mechs called attacks, all-terrain armored combatants, which are powered by gemstones and wield swords and spears alongside elemental attacks. That premise is definitely something. As with most working designs releases, the packaging is beautiful and the localization adds a lot of personality, for better and occasionally for worse. The thing that really elevates this above its reputation is the branching story. There are 3 separate narrative paths, depending on choices you make throughout the game, each showing a different perspective on the same war and leading to different endings. Playing all 3 gives you a complete picture of the conflict that no single run can deliver. The cast has genuine depth, villains who are compelling, characters whose motivations track even when they're opposing you. The mechs themselves have enough visual variety and personality to make the roster feel distinct. What holds it back is the combat layer itself, which doesn't push tactics particularly hard. The challenge is light, battles follow a predictable flow, and the overworld exploration is basically non-existent. You're funneled directly from story beat to story beat. The 3D battle animations look dated, and most players turn them off within an hour. But the 3-path narrative structure in a 1998 mech tactics game is ahead of most of what the genre was doing, and Working Designs clearly believe in it enough to go all in on the presentation. That commitment is evident. Rhapsody, a musical adventure, is Nippon Ichi Software's first RPG and the most unusual entry on this list, which is saying something. It's a tactical RPG where the cutscenes are musical numbers, fully voiced, fully sung, characters literally breaking into choreographed song to advance the plot. A young girl and her living puppet go on a quest to rescue a petrified prince, and every major plot beat gets its own song. Tenpei Sato wrote the score, and the game was directly influenced by Disney musicals. Atlas dubbed the English release with actual singing, which is either charming or cursed depending on your tolerance level. This is technically the first NIS game in the lineage that eventually produced Disgaea, and you can see the DNA. The tone is completely different from Disgaea's dark humor, but the character design and writing sensibility are recognizable. The game came out in 1998 in Japan and finally reached North America in 2000, 2 months before the PS2 launched, which guaranteed almost no one bought it. The combat is extremely easy. It was probably easy back then. You're rarely in genuine danger. The battles are short, and the strategic depth is minimal. If you come at this purely as a tactics game, you'll be confused why it exists. But as an experience, a genuinely weird, genuinely sincere musical JRPG that predates the company's own rise to fame. It's totally one of a kind. Front Mission 2 is the one that never left Japan. The original Front Mission got a Western release eventually. 3 came to North America in 2000 and was reasonably well received. Many consider this the most sophisticated entry in the entire series. It was kept in Japan for over 2 decades. Square's own explanation was that it contained military and political content that would be considered inappropriate in Western markets, which is simultaneously vague and intriguing. It finally got a Western remake in 2023. The AP system is pretty special. Every action costs action points, and adjacent allied or enemy units modify your AP pool in real time. This creates a tactical geometry that rewards tight formation play and punishes isolation. Surrounding a strong enemy unit drains their capacity to respond. Having allies nearby keeps your own options open. It plays closer to a game of Go than a chess. The story is set during a coup in a fictionalized Bangladesh and engages seriously with questions about revolution, foreign intervention, and what loyalty means in a collapsing state. The learning curve is genuinely steep, and some battles will take over an hour to complete. The AP randomness and counterattacks can frustrate. But for people who want the most mechanically complex entry in a consistently excellent series, this is it.